This is the next video in our Introduction to Arduino series for 7th graders. In the last video, we created a circuit on our breadboard that has 8 LEDs in it. We're now going to create the code that will turn those LEDs on. So, come here to CodeBender again, type that in, and we're going to log in with Google just like we did before. So, sign in with Google right there. And as it comes up, we're going to be able to see all the sketches, or the Arduino programs, they're called sketches, that we've created. You can see them all right here. So far we've just created this one. So we could click on it and start editing it or changing it again. We're actually not going to do that. We want to create a whole new sketch. So we're going to come up here to this blue button, Create Sketch. And this Create Sketch window comes up. I will type in the name of my sketch. I'm going to call it 8 LEDs. And I'm not going to write a description. So we'll create that. And what it will do is it will give us a blank template for creating an Arduino sketch. And here you can see the blank template. Now there are always two parts of an Arduino program. There's the setup part. That's all of this stuff, and we can type the setup that we want to have happen right here. And then the second part is the loop, and we can type our loop stuff here. And what's going to happen is once we start running the program, when we plug our Arduino in and hit this run button, it will go through this setup stuff once and do all the setup for us just once. Then it will enter this loop and it will start doing everything that we type here, all this loop stuff, and it will do it over and over and over again until we unplug the Arduino or do something else to stop the program. Okay, so what setup do we have to do? Well, the setup that we have to do, we have to tell the Arduino what pins to look at. So I'm going to get rid of this, and instead I'm going to type set up pins. Now you may be wondering what this is that I've just typed. Whenever I type in something with 2 forward slashes, that becomes a comment. And a comment is just a piece of code that the computer is not going to look at. It can be anything you want, and the computer is going to completely ignore it. So this is just for us, to tell us if we come back and look at the program later, it will tell us what we were thinking when we created it. So it's a good idea to type those things in. Okay, so we want to now tell the Arduino that it needs to look at pin 13. So how do we do that? We do that with this command right here. It's called pin mode. And make sure you type it in with all the lower cases and capitals, just like you see here on the screen. Okay, so pin mode, and then we'll type parentheses. We want to tell it to look at pin 13, so we'll type a 13, then type a comma, and we want to tell the Arduino that pin 13 is going to be an output. So type it with all capital letters. If you've typed it correctly, it will turn red. And then the last thing we need to do in order to complete this line of code is to type a semicolon. A semicolon tells the Arduino that that line of code is finished, it's complete. Okay, so this is perfect. What this line of code does is it tells the Arduino, hey, I want to be looking at pin 13 and I'm going to want to output power from that pin. That's what the output means. It's going to send out electricity from that pin to whatever we connect it to, which is what we want it to do. We want it to send out power into our LED, which is connected to pin 13. Okay, so we need to do this a couple more times for all the pins we're going to use. If you look at your Arduino, we are using pins 13 through 6. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6. So we'll do this a whole bunch of times. So there's for pin 12, here's for pin 11, pin 10, and we just have to call this pin mode command and write the pin number, and then tell it that it's going to be an output. And that's all we have to do. If you don't want to type in all of these things, you can copy and paste. So highlight, do Control C, then come to the next line, type Control V, and it will copy and paste it there. You can then just come in and change the number. So I'm going to do that for the rest of these. Okay, and there we have it. That is our setup. That's all the setup we need to do. So now, what do we put in our loop? What do we actually want this program to do? Well, the very first thing we want it to do, let's say that we want to turn on all of the pins. We want to turn on every single one of these pins right here, and by so doing, we will turn on all the LEDs. That's pretty much the point of this program. So I'm going to change this comment, turn on all LEDs. Great. So we're going to use now a different command that will turn on these different pins. We used the same command in the previous program, if you remember, and that is digital write. Okay, and just like these commands up here, inside the parentheses, we need to tell it what pin to turn on. So let's turn on pin 13, and we need to tell it to turn it on high. Okay, so that command right there will turn on pin 13. Now if we had written low here instead, this command would turn off pin 13. Okay, but we don't want to turn them off, we want to turn them on. Okay, so what we need to do is do this for every single pin. So I'm going to copy and paste like we did before. Put a bunch of them in here. And then change the numbers so we're turning on all the different pins. Oops, and I got one too many, so we'll get rid of that one. Okay, so what we have is we set up all of the pins to be outputs, and then we enter the loop and we turn them on. And yes, what's going to happen is this loop is going to start executing. It will go to this first one, turn it on, go to the next one, turn on pin 12, go to the next one, turn on pin 11, and so forth until it gets all the way to the bottom. And then it's going to start over. It's going to come back up here, it'll skip the comment, it will come on, and it will look, hey, pin 13 is already on. So it's going to keep it on. It's going to keep it high. It'll then go to pin 12. Oh, that one's already on too. Okay, I guess we'll keep it high. We'll keep it on. And it will just keep doing that over and over and over. Well, that's not a very interesting program. It simply turns the LEDs on. But it will help us to see that the LEDs are actually working and that everything is wired up correctly. So go ahead and pause the video, save your sketch by clicking on the save, and then click on verify. It will verify that we don't have any errors. Verification successful, very good. And then click on run and watch, and all of your LEDs should light up. So go ahead and pause the video and try that. Okay, so now all of your LEDs should be on. Let's make this program a little more interesting. Let's make these LEDs blink on and off. So, do you remember how we turn an LED off? We do that using this same command that we've used here, digital write. We tell it what pin we want to turn off, so let's turn off pin 13. And instead of typing high like we did up here, we're going to type low. And that will turn it off. And make sure you get the semicolon after. If you don't get the semicolon after, here I'll just show you what happens if you don't put the semicolon. When you come up and hit verify, it will say, oh no, verification failed, there's an error. If we come down here and find out what the error is, it tells us it expected to find a semicolon somewhere. Well, if we click on this, it will tell us what line the problem is. Oh, it expected to find a semicolon right there. So we can type the semicolon there, verify, and verification is successful. The world is better. Okay, so this command is going to turn off LED 13, or pin 13. Now there's just one problem with the code that I've written here. Computer code executes really, really fast. So it's going to do this line, turn on pin 13, turn on pin 12, turn on pin 11, turn on pin 10, all the way down here. And that's going to happen in a fraction of a second. And then it's going to come here and turn off pin 13. And then it's going to come up here, and a fraction of a second later, it's going to turn it back on. Then a fraction of a second later, it'll be back down here and turn it off. And that's going to happen so fast that we can't even see it turning on and off. So the way to solve that is to have the program wait. We want to put in a delay. We also used this in the last program, if you remember. That was the number that you were changing to change how fast and how slow the LEDs were turning on. And this is the command that will do that, delay. And then inside the parentheses, you type in how many milliseconds you want it to wait. So let's have it wait for 1,000 milliseconds. That's 1 second. Okay, and I'm going to put in a comment here, wait 1 second. And then I'll put in a comment here, turn off all LEDs. Great, okay. So what this will do is it will turn all of them on, and then it will hit this command, and it will wait for a whole second. After it's waited for a second, then it will come here and turn them off. Okay, so we'll copy this. And just like we did above, we will turn them all off. Okay, great. And now we need to do one more thing. We need to put in one more delay. Wait 1 second. So we'll put in a delay, and let's have it wait for only half a second. So we'll put in a delay of 500 milliseconds, or half a second. Wait half a second. Okay. So here's our loop. It's going to turn all the LEDs on, wait a second, turn them all off, wait half a second, then come back up here, turn them on, wait, turn them off, wait. All right, so now it's time to try. So let's verify that we don't have any errors. Good, and now we will run. So go ahead and pause your video and run and see what happens. Okay, so what you should see is that all of your LEDs are staying on for a second and then turning off for half a second, then staying on for a second, then turning off for half a second. So, are you ready to get creative? Great. So go to the next video and you can get creative.